Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be ranking Season 6 of Classic Doctor Who, which of course is Troughton's final season. Having recently watched The Space Pirates, mostly through reconstructions, I have finally seen all of one of Troughton's season, the whole thing, and I can rank it from bottom to top, worst to best. Now, there are 7 stories this season, and number 7 on the list is going to be The Space Pirates. Now, let me be clear. The Space Pirates, from a story standpoint, is not the worst of the season. Like, it is not my least favorite story of the season. I actually like some of the stuff going on in The Space Pirates. There's a lot of action in it I like. It really picks up as the story progresses. I've read the Target novelization. If I was basing this off the actual story itself, especially going off the Target novel, this story would be higher on this list. Let me be clear. The reason it's this low is that the reconstruction of it is so hard to get through. Especially, it gets progressively harder. And those last 2 episodes were so hard to get through because there aren't any existing telesnaps, and you can tell where they've had to make the telesnaps. And this is nothing against loose cannon. They've done a phenomenal job considering the circumstances. My hat's off to them. But it just becomes harder to get through listening to that with those telesnaps. The surviving episode 2 is fine. I didn't mind like the early episodes of Recons, like 1 and 3. But by the time 5 and 6 got done, I was just trying to get through the story. And again, it's not the story's fault. I've read the novel already. I knew what happened, and I liked the novel a lot. But that Recon is grueling to get through at 6 parts, 5 of them having to be done through recons, and the only surviving episode being episode 2 early in the story, where not as much is going on. It becomes much more active and much more visual, especially in those last 2 or 3 episodes. And there are several scenes that the recon just doesn't do a good job of trying to capture what's happening, which I mentioned in the reviews for those episodes. So because of that, Space Pirates is at the bottom. I do actually enjoy the story, though. At number 6 is The Dominators. It is such a crime that we are missing so many Troughton stories, but we have all 5 episodes of The Dominators. That is just not fair. The Dominators is probably the worst story of the season, and quite possibly Troughton's worst story from a story standpoint. It's not very interesting. I mean, there's some neat ideas in there, and it talks about how total pacifism might not be the best idea, whereas total aggression, like the Dominators, also might not be the best idea, and sometimes you have to kind of find a happy medium somewhere in the middle. Now, the episode, this was one of those I had always heard had a bad reputation, but I've also found some stories with a bad reputation I like. I think The Mutants is underrated. I think The Time Monster is underrated. I think The Crotons is underrated. I've always enjoyed those stories more than their reputations have given them credit for. So I figured that might be the case with the Dominators. And then, like, right at the beginning of the Dominators, when the 2 Dominator guys are talking to each other, and they're talking like this, and they're not even looking at each other when they're talking, and I'm sitting there going, "Ooh, I'm in for a long one, aren't I? This one's not going to be easy to get through, is it?" And it's not great. Now, there are good moments in it. The TARDIS team is really good in this, especially Troughton and Fraser. They have some really good moments that do make this story watchable and enjoyable even in places. I love that bit when the guy has already told the Doctor to avoid the quirks, and when he catches the quarks, and when he catches them next to one, he's like, "I thought I told you to stay away." And he goes, "Well, I do. Every time I see one, I run away, but they're everywhere. What am I supposed to do?" I love the way Troughton plays that part, lying through his teeth. Boy, if that's where the origin of the Doctor lies comes from, the second Doctor, because the second Doctor will lie through his teeth, and I love it. I love Troughton. And then the bit when he's playing dumb with the ray gun is hilarious, and I love the fact Troughton does actually admit that he plays dumb here when he's explaining to Jamie how, people tend not to look as closely as someone they think is a fool. The fact that he actually was flat out admitting that he pulls a Columbo a lot, basically, and just plays dumb. It is very watchable. It's definitely not on, say, the unwatchable levels Power of Kroll is, for example, or Fear Her or something like that. It's perfectly watchable. It's just not very good. Now, 3, 4, and 5 on the list, these are very interchangeable. I had a hard time ordering numbers 3, 4, and 5. So if you don't agree with the order, know that they're close and they could rearrange at any given time. Number 5 on the list is the Seeds of Death. I like the Seeds of Death. It's a vast improvement over the Ice Warriors, which I enjoy the Ice Warriors. It's just a little overly long, but it's fine. But Seeds of Death is better. I think the Ice Warriors are utilized better. I like the guest cast. You feel sorry for that one guy who's kind of a coward, but he just doesn't want to die. He's in a bad situation. He's trying not to die, and he does come through at the end. It has some nice cliffhangers. It's a little long at 6 parts again. I think it could have worked at 4 or 5 parts maybe. This is another one of those. I've seen it more than once. I think I've seen it twice now. Because I do own it. I own the special edition of it. But it's another one of those I tend to remember the cliff notes more than the actual story. The main beats of the story are interesting, but there's a lot of filler in the middle that just doesn't grab me as much. And that's the reason why it ranks so low. I think if it was shorter, it would rank a little higher. Which moves me into number 4, which is the Crotons, which is probably higher than people would place the Crotons. One of the reasons the Crotons places this high is that it's only a 4-parter. It's a 4-parter that knows it only needs to be a 4-parter, so it never feels overly long. I like the concept of the story. The Crotons look good from here up. From here up, they look good. I like their concept of being mineral based, of being sentient rocks. I like the diamond heads and the head spinning. I enjoy the voices. The voices work for a 60s villain. I mean, who knew people would still be watching these in 2023? They work really well for that. The arms are fine. It's from the waist down that they lose it, where it just looks like somebody in a suit that can barely move, barely walk. The story's not the best in the world. It's fine. And then it has some really cute moments, especially with the Doctor and Zoe. I love that moment when he's trying to learn, what's this do? No, wait, come back. No, show me. No, wait, no, I got it. Go on. And she's over there just going, press the button. That whole little bit there when he's telling her to go away, come back. What's this do? Never mind. I love that. That's adorable. It's one of my favorite Second Doctor moments. And it just shows the wonderful paternal bond kind of between Zoe and the Second Doctor. Kind of like maybe an eccentric uncle. Maybe that's a good way to put it. I like that. So it definitely has some really nice moments in it. And a couple good cliffhangers too, like when all the rocks fall on the Doctor. I enjoy that cliffhanger a lot. Number 3 on the list is the Mind Robber. I love when Doctor Who does stuff like this. I love when Doctor Who does those totally out there. I love when Doctor Who remembers it's Doctor Who. And you get these fun style adventure, because it's kind of a fantasy adventure. It's less sci-fi and more fantasy, even though it's based in sci-fi, being in another dimension, being out of time. I think it's realized really well. The minimalist approach they take to this story works really well because, one, that works within the classic Doctor Who budget. And 2, being in black and white really fits that, especially like episode 1 when they're in just that kind of blank white area with the white robots. It works. And then when he's running into, Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels, seeing the Minotaur, it's it all works because it's done on this minimalist scale, like a child's imagination might be, where they don't have all the details filled in. Everything has a more generalized, minimalist look to it. I like that. That really fits. It is a little weird watching the Doctor call the other guy that they're up against the Master when it's not actually the Master, when it's not the Master we're familiar with. Having him call someone else the Master is a little weird. Of course, this was before the Master became in existence, since he wasn't around in the 60s. But it's still a little odd going back and watching it. But a really good story with a nice ending. I did enjoy it. Now, the top 2, I have the same problem. Ordering the top 2 is also very difficult because the top 2 are masterpieces. They're classics, and they're phenomenal. They are both essential Doctor Who. I had a really hard time ordering them, but I'm going to put number 2 at The Invasion, or The Invasion at number 2. I guess that'd make more sense. I love The Invasion. The Invasion could be the best Cyberman story we've ever gotten. It's really good. It's one of my two favorites. It and the Moonbase are my favorite Cyberman stories. It's a shame that both of them are not complete. The animation for The Invasion is good, though. I think it holds up well. I love the story. I love Vaughn is such a good character. Kevin Stoney did such a good job playing Tobias Vaughn, making him menacing and threatening to where even if the Cybermen wasn't in this story, it would be a good story. And then the guy playing Packard does a really good job. You know, one kind of being the brains, one kind of being the brawn, although you also find out Vaughn can be pretty deadly on his own too. So when the Cybermen do show up, that's just yet another threat to what's going on. And of course, we have the Brigadier back, who has actually been promoted to Brigadier now, I should say. And it's really great having Nicholas Courtney back. I love how well the Brigadier gets on with the second Doctor. That's why I'm really happy looking back on it that they were paired up for the 5 Doctors, because I really like the second Doctor and the Brigadier together. They seem to just get on really, really well. And of course, The Invasion has some of that iconic location work that just looks phenomenal and has aged really well. I mean, I know they've tried to recreate a couple of those shots several times, like the Cybermen walking down the steps. And when they've used them in other episodes, they look good, but it still doesn't match just how good it looks in black and white from The Invasion, in my opinion. And number 1 on the list for me is the War Games. I love the War Games. One of my earliest memories of Troughton was seeing, well, the 5 Doctors and the War Games. I remember seeing, if not all of the War Games, at least the end of the War Games when I was little, because I remember him spinning into the darkness, seeing that when I was little on PBS. I like this. And even at 10 parts, it never seems to drag for me. I know some people might say it's a little padded. There is a lot of, you know, we got caught, we escaped, we got caught, we escaped, someone else caught us, we escaped. There is a lot of that. But it works. It fits in the narrative of the story with all these different militant groups from all these different time periods fighting each other and crossing over. It kind of makes sense. You have some nice guest characters in there. The guy playing the war chief is good in it. The guy playing the warlord, who I know is in several Doctor Who's, including Brain of Morbius and the Dalek Invasion of Earth movie. He's great in it. Bernard's always great to have in it, playing one of the Time Lords, and this one's always great when he shows up. The cliffhanger to episode 9 is one of my favorite cliffhangers in all of Doctor Who, when they're running toward the TARDIS in slow-mo, and it just goes to show, at least back then, how powerful the Time Lords were and how much they've been neutered since. This really is the Time Lords in all their glory here. And then episode 10 is just essential Doctor Who. It is just essential Doctor Who. Everyone needs to see the final episode of the War Games, and honestly the War Games in general. I love the War Games so much. It's such a good story. It never feels like it's dragging to me personally. So that's how I would rank season 6. I'd like to know how you would rank season 6. So comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out. I am trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subscribers. That is my goal in 2023. We are well on our way. We're over 930 at this point. So I certainly appreciate each and every one of you if you'd help me out with that, if you haven't already. I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me that way, there's a link to that down in the description below if you want to take just a few seconds out of your day and check that out. Several different tiers to choose from. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month, and that does help me keep the bills paid. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, and a link to my Amazon wish list is down there as well. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. And most importantly, thank you for watching.